Who doesn't love a good old-fashioned? I know I do. It's one of my favorite cocktails, and today we're going to talk about 7 whiskeys that are great for an old-fashioned. Let's get into it. Hello everyone, welcome back to Brad's Bourbon Reviews. I'm Brad, and today this idea came to me through my group chat that we have. It's a bunch of Orlando bourbon dorks, and my buddy Chris asked me if I ever made a video about bourbons that are good for old fashions or whiskeys that are good for old fashions, and I was like, no, I'm stealing that idea. Thank you very much. An old fashioned is probably my favorite cocktail. It's the one I go to the most. It's the one cocktail that I like order out because sometimes they have bitters that I don't have. Sometimes I'll have like a simple syrup that I don't have, but usually I have the bourbon available. So let's talk a little bit about this cocktail. Yes, you are mixing when you make an old fashioned. So I know a lot of people are going to be a little apprehensive about some of the bottles that are on this list because a few of them are allocated and hard to find. However, in a cocktail, specifically the old fashioned, I think that the better the spirit you're using, the better the experience you're going to have drinking that cocktail. Now, that doesn't equate to, whiskey and Coke. Like if you have King of Kentucky and you mix it with Coke, I'm sure that's a marginally better drink, but I don't think that it's the same thing as a alcohol-forward cocktail like an old-fashioned. The old-fashioned is 3 things: whiskey, bitters, and some sort of simple syrup. I tend to use maple syrup or demerara sugar when I'm doing an old-fashioned, just for something a little different. So here's the criteria for the bottles that I picked for this video. I picked 7 bourbons or whiskeys. I actually like rye whiskey the best in an old-fashioned. I'm kind of more traditional. I think the rye balances out the sweetness and the bitterness better in most cases than bourbon, but there are some exceptions which are on this list. The criteria I had has to be a solid bourbon or whiskey on its own. It has to be 90 proof to hold up to dilution and can't be like overly expensive. So like all of these bottles, and like I said, there are a few allocated ones here. I did get these at retail. There is not a bottle on this list that is over $50 with the exception of one because it may be 55. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up. But this list is in no particular order. Let's go ahead with the first one here. First one up is a great little bottle called Early Times Bottled and Bond. This meets all the criteria. It's inexpensive. It is a high quality bourbon and it is relatively inexpensive if you can find it. I know this is not available in every area. It's not available in my area. I get a hold of it a lot when I go traveling to North and South Carolina. I literally bought a case of it for my patrons last time I was in South Carolina. So it's in the areas where it is available, it seems to be pretty available. So you get a liter of this for around, I've seen it as low as $15. I've seen it as high as $30. I mean, 15 is just an absolute steal. Even at $30 for a liter of something this good, this high proof is an absolute steal. This is the first one on the list. It doesn't mean it's the best or the worst on this list. They are in no order. It is an absolutely fantastic bottle. I drink it neat. I drink it in cocktails, and I love it in a good old fashioned. Moving on to the next one. All right, let's go ahead and get an allocated one out of the way because I know people are going to be upset. And yes, I have made multiple old fashions with Colonel E.H. Taylor. Lucky for me, where I'm at, I can get this relatively inexpensively and relatively easy. About once a month, I see these at drops. So for me, this is like, I swear I'm not being a douche. For me, this is like almost like a daily drinker at this point. I've got about 5 or 6 bottles of this on reserve, so I can use this in any capacity. And it is an absolutely amazing bottle, 100 proof, high quality, and for me, it's relatively inexpensive. It's about $45, $50 depending on if I get it at Walmart or Publix. Yes, I do get E.H. Taylor at Walmart all the time. I did it like a week ago. Yeah, I love this one in an old fashioned. It's really sweet. And if you use the proper bitters, Angostura and orange is like a mixture that I like, or a Peychaud's bitters, it really shines in a spirit-forward cocktail because the spirit itself is fantastic. Moving on to the next one. All right, let's get a rye in here. And this is probably my favorite one to mix with right now. This is Bullet 12 year. This is the one I was talking about. This might be $55. I don't think it's more than that. It is a fantastic high age statement, 95 proof, if I remember correctly, 92 proof rye whiskey. This is like the bottle for making an old fashioned. If you have a bottle of Bullet 12 year rye and you haven't made an old fashioned with it, stop what you're doing, go grab some maple syrup, go grab Angostura bitters and orange bitters, 3 dashes of each, a bar spoon of maple syrup, and 2 ounces of this on a cube. Stir to dilution, and then pour it over another cube, like a big rock or a big ball in a rocks glass. You'll have the best old-fashioned you've ever had. This bottle's incredible for making old-fashions. It's good on its own, but it really, really, really shines in an old-fashioned. I really love this bottle, and I don't know if I'm going to include this in Whiskeys of the Year. I might. It just kind of depends, but I really, really, really love this bottle. And after I do this video, I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to pour an old fashioned because I haven't had one in a while, and this video is really making me want one. Moving on to the next one. All right, we're going to do another bourbon here. This is another one that might make some people upset, but again, this falls in the same scenario that I have with the E.H. Taylor small batch. I can get these relatively easy for me. About once a month they drop, and I'm talking about Eagle Rare. This is a store pick, but this is just the first one I had on the shelf. I wouldn't use a store pick, to be honest with you, because I don't really, these are very hard to come by for me. I don't know if you guys get store picks of Eagle Rare all the time, but I certainly do not. So I wouldn't use the store pick, but I'm just using this as a bottle for Eagle Rare. This bottle is amazing. 90 proof, 10-year bourbon. It shines. It is oaky. It is sweet. The flavors themselves stand up to the dilution when you're making the cocktail itself. If you've never made an Eagle Rare Old Fashioned, I've made a video on it. I love Eagle Rare in an Old Fashioned. It's one of the very few bourbons that I like in an Old Fashioned, and the only ones I really do are on this list right here. This is one of my favorite bourbons to make an Old Fashioned with. I think it's just absolutely fantastic. Even if you make a small one, because Eagle Rare is hard for you to get. If you make like, you know, a hat, like measure everything down to just make like a small drink, do it. You're going to love it. It's fantastic. I highly recommend anyone getting their hands on an Eagle Rare Old Fashioned. Moving on to the next one. Up next, another bottle from Buffalo Trace and another single. I don't keep having these single barrels. I didn't realize I had this many single barrels. This is a single barrel of Savannah Rye. Now, this one is a total wine pick. I would use this if I needed to. I've got a few bottles of Savannah as a backup. I love Savannah Rye. I think it's fantastic. It's good on its own. This is probably the one that I enjoy the least on its own. However, it's still a solid pour. I'm not going to turn my nose up to some Savannah Rye. I think it's fantastic. But this is probably the best one on this list to mix with. I think this one is fantastic in an old fashioned. It is absolutely delicious. It's the quintessential rye whiskey, in my opinion. I know some people don't love it, but to me, even if you don't love it, I think you probably would enjoy it in an old fashioned. It's like it's made for it. It's amazing. So if you've never had a Savannah Rye Old Fashioned, this is my go-to. I'm actually bringing one of these to Thanksgiving to make Old Fashions with. So I will be doing that for my family when I go see them in New Jersey in a few weeks. Move on to the next one. All right, last bourbon on the list here, and this is, again, this is kind of a stand-in bottle because this is Conviction Bourbon's Infinity Barrel that they bottled at 105 proof. Doesn't have to be this one in particular, but Conviction Small Batch Bourbon is like destined to be in a good cocktail. It is absolutely delicious. These are uncut, unfiltered single barrels, so they all vary on proof. First one I ever had with Conviction was actually at their distillery, and it was unbelievable. It was probably the best old fashioned I've ever had, and it was made with one of their single barrels. If you are in North or South Carolina, I know I talk about them so much, but I love them. I'm telling you, they are the distillery to watch. They are going to blow the fuck up and be massive. I hope that they are making a shit ton of whiskey because I'm determined to make them as widely known as possible so they blow the fuck up and forget who I am. That's my goal. They're going to blow up. They're just like an incredible distillery. They make some of the best bourbon I've ever had. You make this in a cocktail and you're going to have a good night. So Conviction Bourbon is on that list. Moving on to the last one. Outside of Savannah Rye, this is probably my favorite rye whiskey to mix with. Not just in old fashions, across all of whiskey cocktails, but I think it makes the best old fashioned on this list. If I had to pick one whiskey to make old fashions with, it would all day, every day be the Jack Daniels Bonded Rye. This is my second or third of these. I almost exclusively mix this with old fashions. I've had it neat, obviously, for the review, and I adore it. But to me, this thing just really shines in a cocktail. And something that is so spirit forward, like an old fashioned, is a perfect tool for this amazing bonded rye whiskey. 100 proof Jack Daniels Rye, like, you cannot do better than this. This is an absolute gem of a bottle. I feel like I need another one of these. The whole bonded series is incredible, but for this video specific, the bonded rye is just the GOAT, in my opinion, for making old fashioned. So, well, that is the end of the video. Please leave a like and subscribe while you're here. Make sure you comment down below, what is your favorite whiskey for old fashions? If I missed one, please let me know. I'd love to try it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, cheers. A big thank you to all the Patreon supporters you see on screen right now.